Welcome to Water into Wine, a podcast with Father Charleston Wilson, rector at Church of the Redeemer in Sarasota, Florida. I'm Greer Ferguson, the communications director at the church. Father Charleston is a priest, husband, father of two, Anglophile, sock enthusiast, Motown fanatic, and proud native of Linden, Alabama. Oh, and a wine connoisseur. We're sitting down to chat with him about how to invite more grace into your life, how to develop a deeper relationship with God, and how to enjoy a great glass of wine. We're meeting at the intersection of music, faith, wine, and a good helping of modern cultural references. Put it all together, and we're telling the story of God's love and bringing it to life in a fresh way. Join us right here for casual conversations with your spiritual sommelier. Today, we're talking about control. To start the conversation, we're opening a bottle of wine. What are we drinking today, Father Charleston?
Today, we are drinking a beautiful Pinot Grigio from Friuli, Italy. And if you get out your map and you find Venice, and you go northeast, close to the Austrian border, you will find Friuli. That's a region famous for this particular grape. And I have a particular reason that we'll probably talk about why I chose this wine. Pinot Grigios are typically bright, fruit-forward, but they retain enough acidity that you can pair them with lots of food. So with this one in particular, I think I'm thinking of goat cheese and figs. I think it would be fabulous with pretty much any seafood. And the maker, so you know it, is a 2024 Pecorari Pinot Grigio from Friuli, Italy. And it's widely available. And we're also trying to make things that are not only approachable and good and food-friendly and make your life better, but also things that don't necessarily break the bank. And this is about $18. And some would say, oh my gosh, $18, my word. And those people probably spend $8 on a venti acai thing from Starbucks every day. And when you really consider it, I'm obviously on my soapbox now, it is, let's call it 750 milliliters. That is what a bottle of wine is. And if you get 150 milliliter pours, you get 5 of those. So you go to Starbucks 5 times, and I promise you, you're going to be way over $18. So chill on the 18 panic if you're panicking about $18 for a bottle of wine.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it.
I think that may be called self-justification, but whatever, we'll keep going.
You've done the math. So tell us more about why you picked this bottle of wine, this wine in particular, for our episode about control.
I picked this wine because you told me we were going to be talking about control. And I've actually met winemakers from this region when I was in the wine business. And I found out, I thought they were all 107 when I met them, and they were in their 40s. I
hope they're not listening to
I
this.
hope not either. One guy, they've forgotten about me, I'm sure. One guy was, you could tell in a former life, was like James Bond mixed with Indiana Jones. And the control, the human manipulation factor that goes into making a good Pinot Grigio has exhausted people. Now, when they do it well, it's beautiful, I have to admit, but it's an exhausting place to grow. The grape, Pinot Grigio, if you're thinking in French, it'd be Pinot Gris. It's really, really struggles when it gets hot. If you get a heat wave in Europe, it just melts and gets mad. It cooks the flavors out and pushes down the acidity, and it just makes the wine, really, the term they use in the industry is flabby. And you don't want that. It's a thin-skinned grape. You know some thin-skinned people?
A couple.
A few, yes, we do. We won't name any. It's thin-skinned.
None of our parishioners.
Zero. And so it's vulnerable to things like sunburn, to rot, fungus disease. You have to, when you grow this, the elevations are very steep as well. And you still have to, if it starts to get warm, you'll see them putting up things that look like wedding tents. Well, you and I would think, oh, somebody's getting married. No, they're trying to keep the vines from burning up.
Protect the grapes. So no sunscreen.
No sunscreen. No, that would really be interesting. And you have to, harvesting Pinot Grigio is notoriously difficult because you have to do it just when the sugar and acid is in a position where it can be crisp and light. Otherwise, you'll drive up the alcohol, which will ruin the wine, or you'll push down the acidity. And they're tinkering with this nonstop, and you can see it. They're trying to control this has absolutely, for a lack of a better term, driven them insane. And that's why I chose this particular area.
So we're talking about control. We're going to talk about how we often try to control aspects of our own lives and aspects of the lives of others that are really sometimes way out of our control. And we're also going to talk about surrendering control. Is this a topic that tends to come up a lot when you're talking with parishioners about issues they're facing?
You know, now that you framed it the way you have, it may be the number one topic that drives pastoral care. You may not come in with a presenting problem saying to me, I just need to hand it over to God. But almost 95% of the prayer and pastoral care that the church provides for her members ultimately lands there.
That's interesting.
And yeah, I guess we'll tease that out a bit more.
Yeah. Well, before we do that, should we give this a taste?
Yes.
Give the wine of the day a taste.
Indeed.
All right.
So I'm taking, you can't see me, dear listener, but give it a nice swirl and just don't be bashful. This is not TV. Just put your nose down in the glass. Take a nice breath with white flowers, and you can smell a little honeysuckle, white peach, and then now I'm going to give it a go for the taste. And that slurping sound that you heard is just the way you have to taste.
It wasn't me.
No. Imagine that you're taking a straw and you're pulling it. You shape your mouth like you had a straw, and you just want to pull that wine across the tongue a couple of times to coat the entire tongue so that you get the full Monty. And it confirms what we thought. This is a well-done wine. It may benefit from another year or two before drinking. This is a young wine, 2024, but they picked it right. They exercised a lot of control, and I'm sure they went nuts making it, and I'm thankful for them.
And what would you eat this with? What would you pair it with?
Well, again, I think almost any kind of seafood, particularly shellfish. This can also, it has enough acidity that it will stand up to anything. If you want to put up any kind of beurre blanc or lemon butter sauce, any kind of thing, this will stand right up to it. It won't get lost. Shrimp, lobster, stone crab, if you want to go fancy, grouper, snapper, sea bass, all of the classical fishes. Fish dish will work with this. And also, for some reason, I think crostini, which I think technically just means toasted bread that is, no, it's not toasted. Technically, crostini is grilled bread.
Grilled bread, okay.
Brushed with garlic and olive oil. That's, I think, the basic of it, and you can go up from there and add anything you want.
Yeah.
But I think if you started with that and then had a little goat cheese and a little fig and a little prosciutto, and you had a cup of this, and you did that when you got home and listened to a little music, you probably would not have that argument with your spouse that you had yesterday.
That sounds delicious. I wish we had goat cheese right now.
I'm in. I should have brought some maybe next time.
Where's the goat cheese? I'm always in for goat cheese, though.
Yeah, it's one of those cheeses you actually can eat it every day and never tire of it.
Yeah.
Not every cheese, think of a big, strong blue cheese like Bleu d'Auvergne or Roquefort. You can't eat that every day.
I think I could eat that every day.
Really? Okay, good for you.
I could eat a lot of cheese every day. It's a talent of mine.
I love cheese too.
So tell us more about when parishioners come in to talk to you, and you realize it boils down to issues of control, how we're trying to control ourselves, how we're trying to control others.
Well, I realize that's the issue because I'm trying to do the same thing myself with very little success, I might add. It was St. Augustine who said to his wonderful flock. He was a bishop at the time, but he said to them, "To you I am a bishop, but with you I am merely a fellow pilgrim." And so it's not hard for me to identify with parishioners because I am one. So I may be to you, I'm a priest, but with you, I'm just another fellow pilgrim on this journey. So I do know what it feels like to try to control things that really are beyond my control. A lot of times, if the parishioner will let me, I will ask, what is it in your life that stresses you the most? And generally, more like 90% of the time, their biggest stressor is related to their inability to control some aspect of life or in the life of someone they love the most. Very often, pastoral care is not about the person in the room ostensibly, though we get to that. It's you're almost there by proxy.
Yeah.
Your child that hasn't called in 16 years. Your husband who doesn't pay you any attention. Your mother. All the things you can think of.
Yeah.
It's often pastoral care by proxy. But ultimately, we work to that person who is present. Because very, very often it's a sense of letting go of trying to manufacture or wrestle some certain outcome. Sometimes you wouldn't be amazed because you're a human being too. The things that stress us are on behalf of others, and we need that not only to let go and let God, but sometimes that involves letting a loved one fail. This comes up a lot with parenting and sports and achievement. Get your big mess up out of the way when you're in kindergarten because it's a safe place to fail and be held back. It's much better your life blow up in kindergarten and you just let your child's life blow up right then and there than it is when they're 40.
Yeah.
So I'm rambling, but that's a little bit about what you asked.
Yeah. So I think there's a tendency, especially with people we call type A people, to want to, make lists and do whatever we can. I'm saying we because I think I self-identify perhaps as a type A person. Do whatever we can to ensure as good of an outcome as possible. So should we not be doing that?
Well, this is always the give and take, isn't it? I think part of our type A, I'm type A, you are type A, we're both type A. A lot of that, I'm sorry to tell you, and I'm sorry to tell myself, a lot of that is a mirage. I finally, just recently, had a great laugh. I have a to-do list, and I like to put little sticky notes on top of the to-do list for those are the things that I need to do before I get to the to-do list. More urgent, one so-called. And Malaysia, my wife, saw the list and she said, "Do you realize a lot of those things have been on that list since I met you 20 years ago?" And so I had a big laugh. I said, I am going to die, truly, and be 6 feet under, having not accomplished a lot of these things on this to-do list. And I had a laugh at myself. And I think that may be where the balance is for type A people. To recognize that you're going to die with a list that you have not completed. Yeah. And it's okay because we live as Christians in something called kairos. We're very limited in English with our words for time. We just have the word time. It's whatever time it is now. That clock's broken on the wall that I'm looking at. That's on brand. The clock's broken at the church. But whatever time it is now, tomorrow we have to do this, so forth and so on. But in Greek and in the Bible, when we have time, we have chronos, which is the time like that broken clock can't keep. And there's kairos, which is God's time. You and I are so hindered by our inability to enter always into kairos, which is where God lives. Everything. This makes my head explode, but everything is present to God. Where you and I are sorting things past, present, and future. It's all present when you're in God's time because he's eternal. And that's a lot to think about on a podcast, but it's nevertheless true. There's also telos is another Greek word for time. That's sort of the end of chronos, the end of appointed time. So if you zoom out, get the Hitchcock lens, he invented that looking down, zoom out, look at your life from kairos. and you will start to see the hand of God over it. And you will see that your inputs weren't as effective as you quite thought or even necessary in a lot of cases.
So meaning kind of taking the long view?
Absolutely. Take the long view. That was Take the Long Way Home. That was a 1979 hit by Supertramp. Take the Long Way Home.
Good.
Yes, I like that.
So why do people tend to kind of play God?
Well, if the Bible is to be God's word, and I believe it really is, I think ultimately when you look at Scripture, you have to decide for yourself, do we stand over it or under it? And I think we stand under it. I think it's God speaking to us. And I think if you take that principle and take it seriously, you have to see that it began in the Garden of Eden, and that we really want to be in control and self-sufficient and independent. And God is, from cover to cover of that great book, that greatest love letter ever written, he is consistently inviting us to become dependent and lose control and surrender self to him. And St. John the Baptist said it as well as anyone, I must decrease so that he, Jesus, may increase. But it started in the garden, and in many ways that ignoble tradition continues right up to this day.
Hmm.
But the happiest people, just ask yourself, the happiest, most stable, to use a clinical word, people that I know are those folks who've surrendered their need to control everything and everyone. And these are people who take God at his word, in his word, that he really will, he will sort it all out in the end. And he will deal graciously, eternally with them in the end. And that's where we start to feel and experience even now that peace that passes all understanding. The world can be on fire, and these people are calm. These are the people that just are calmly getting people out of the airplane, and they're not worked up. And that comes from what I think we could rightly call a healthy detachment. You're talking about balancing the fact that we need to do some things, particularly as type A, with the fact that God ultimately is in control. Where's the happy medium? Healthy detachment. We don't want such a detachment that we become Bob Marley. Just be hopping on. That's a little over. I think that also comes from a drug-induced detachment. That's not the kind of detachment I'm talking about. That's escapism. That's, some sort of Eastern mystic stuff. I found my Zen. No, we're incarnational. Christians are down in the middle of it. What did Jung say? The great quote, the reason man can't see God is he won't look low enough. We want to look up only on the mountaintops and these great spiritual ecstasy experiences. And Jung says, no, look low and you'll find God. So a healthy detachment from trying to control things is where I can finally land and accept what I can and can't manipulate and micromanage. And I can live with that because of the full knowledge that I know the only one who is in control is going to bat for me, even when it looks like my life is falling apart. St. Paul said to the Romans, you know it, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good. That doesn't mean all things we go through are good, but that's taking that long view, an eternal view, that God really will sort it out. To be a bit cliche, but not. We're in sales, not management. And that's really freeing. Malaysia and I were talking about that the other night. She said, wouldn't it be amazing to have a job where you just finish making the widget, you turn out the light, you get in your car, and that job is there, and you are here. Yeah. Well, that's really what's on the table for Christians, is recognizing that differential and having a little peace. And that comes through various words they use to describe it, but surrender is a very good one.
So if we're surrendering some control, who are we or what are we replacing that with? Who should we be trusting?
It has to be replaced with God. We will try to replace it invariably with many replacement religions, not my term, but a good term. Replacement religions or things can be anything that the cultural zeitgeist says is important right now. And they can be good things that we start to go overboard. Parenting is a great example. We've ruined Elf on the Shelf. That was the tyranny of Elf on the Shelf now, with parents that have Instagram pages of just how perfect they can do their Elf on the Shelf. It used to just be a little elf that took some toilet paper and spread it on the bathroom floor. And now it's this lighting and staged production.
Yeah, I think we could have a whole separate Elf on the Shelf episode.
We could. It's the tyranny of technology has done that, but parenting is a replacement religion. Technology is a replacement religion. Health can be a replacement religion. You should be healthy. You should care for the body. But you can just, the people that go completely overboard with it. So it has to be, when you surrender control, the keys have got to be given from the car back to the driver, the ultimate driver, who's God. But invariably, we'll play a tug of war with replacement religions.
And so is the goal to just kind of on a daily basis turn more to prayer? Is that one?
It is. Prayer and the sacramental life of the church are the primary means by which we receive grace, and that's what it will require. But I don't want to come off as unhappy news, because it's good news. But as Paul said, he said, he who began the great work in you will see it to completion on the day of resurrection. At telos. So at the end of chronos, at the end of chronological time, will ultimately be when I can finally surrender the very last thing.
But you're saying even before that, this will bring us peace.
It does, invariably. If you go over now to the church and you don't have to go to the church, go to the church of your heart, wherever you are, dear listener, and you can intentionally take that which is stressing you, and you can silently vocalize, to have an oxymoron, but you can silently vocalize that which is on your heart before God. And it can be this simple. I surrender this to you. And people all over the world are doing that and discovering peace. All roads lead to the cross. Look at that crowd. They had rich, poor, every nation and race, Jew and Gentile, and they all met at the cross. And it's an old preacher's hack, but you can leave it at the cross. And you can do that in prayer. And God strengthens us in prayer, and in particular in the sacramental life of the church. It's not a cliche to say God has a plan. It's not a cop-out. And I think we all need to take a deep breath, particularly type A's like you and me, and surrender both the illusion of control and accept who really is in ultimate control. And then there will come a relief from knowing that those who love God are eternally secure in His mighty, powerful, capable hands. Sometimes I say to parishioners, take the Elsa challenge. You remember from Frozen, she eventually came to this conclusion. She's a wonderful, living, air quotes, example of one who ultimately surrendered control of something she couldn't control and sang, "Let It Go."
It's time now for a listener question, and it ties in with what we've been talking about. So here's the question. How can we balance surrendering control to God with having a sense of personal responsibility and accountability? How do we balance those things?
Well, you love balance and rules and accountability. I have never been so good at those things, obviously. Ask anybody who knows me so well. But I will, dear listener, I will try to answer your question. You strike me as someone who really does want more peace in your life, but you also feel like you need this, at least some authority over you, some hammer over you, or the world will spin off its axis. So we won't go into that bit, although I really want to talk about freedom in Christ at some point, and the law as a custodian that St. Paul says we no longer need. But you want a little bit of law in your life, so I'll give you some. I think what you're asking, dear listener, is for something that's really practical, maybe like an example of how this would work out. I can give you a real world one that happened in my office. I had a couple married for, I'd say, almost 50 years, and they had reached that point that every relationship can hit a dry spell. That's perfectly normal. The thrill is gone, to quote B.B. King, and boy, was it gone. And they were really at each other's throats, and it was a dark, tough place. And I tried everything I could think from the limited knowledge I have of reconciliation techniques, going and back and forth. If anything, over the next hour in my office, it got worse, not better. And then I really did have a message from God, and I'm not a holy roller, but I mean, I really feel like God gave me a word from the Bible when St. Paul said, what you sow does not come to life unless it dies. And I said, wow. Jesus said the same thing, by the way, in a parable about the seed. Unless the grain falls to the seed falls to the ground and dies, it will not bear fruit. And St. Paul picks up on this and says almost verbatim. And I looked at them, and probably not my most pastoral moment, but I took the risk it for the biscuit, and I thought this may be. We're at a breakdown, and when we're at a breakdown, God's ready to break through. I thought we were at the breakdown moment. We were close to death of marriage, and I said, we need to put a bow on this thing. And I looked at them and I said, I've got good news for you today. And they smiled a little bit, and I said, your marriage is over. It has died. And the good news is, now that it is dead, if you'd like, we can renew your vows right now, and God can raise up a brand new, beautiful one for you.
Wow.
It worked. Now, God blessed that risk. And I think there's the balance you're looking for. So there's something you really can do when you're trying to manufacture this outcome. Not only let it go, bury it. Accept that it's dead, it's necrotic. What do we do with necrotic gallbladders? We cut them out. And then something new, healing comes. And the same thing happened in that marriage, in my office. And what a gift that I was part of it. And I will say, just full disclosure, I didn't make that happen. That was God. And any priest or lay leader worth his or her salt will tell you, we always have intentions. Maybe it's related to control. We have intentions of helping someone or ministering to someone, and we always find out they minister to us. That couple ministered more to me by witnessing God's power than I ever could have done for them. So I think that's important to get on the table, because I'm not trying to be a guru on this show podcast. I know it's not a show, but I'm born in another century.
Well, we have one more bonus question, but before we do that question, do you have any final tasting notes about the wine we're drinking today?
Well, you couldn't see me, dear listeners, but I actually took a few more sips of it because I like it quite a bit. And it's bright, it's acidic, and I want to say it's happy. If a wine could have a personality. And as we've been talking, it has opened. We can talk about glassware sometime. I have just a basic glass. You don't need any fancy glasses really to drink wine. You just need a glass.
It's not certain shapes.
No. That's fun to set up a nice table and do an experience with all that, but you don't need it. It's not necessary. You just need a glass. And I have a basic glass here. And it's opened a little bit, and it's just delightful.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, our bonus question also relates to what we've been talking about, and control. Can you tell us about a time in your life, your life personally, when you realized, when it became clear that God was in control?
Oh, I think one's just popped in my head, and it has to do with when I felt first called to priesthood, and the priest who spent every Thursday for a year with me, discerning that was or was not a call from God. Discernment is best undertaken through the church, not in one's own closet. And the Spirit will make it clear. We're all called to ministry. Let's make that clear too. Some to ordained ministry, some to other forms of ministry. And ordained ministry is not a special club, in other words. Really, it's probably best to think of it as a demotion, not a promotion, because it's for service of God's church. But when I wanted to be a priest, I had this plan of how that would take place after it was affirmed by the church. And it didn't look anything like that. But I tell you a place where it became literally and miraculously, at least to me, very clear. Bishop Jack Eicher, who in a small world, because Disney was right, it's a small world after all, he was the previous rector of this church before he was elected the bishop in Texas. And I was going to meet with him for the first time. He'd agreed to meet with me, which I thought was a big step, because you can't be ordained without a bishop. That's how it works in our tradition. And I went there, and we had a fantastic, prayerful conversation. My wife, Malaysia, was with me. One person's called a ministry, but it is a joint calling. And if it's not, it won't work. Mm-hmm. And we prayed, and he said, well, I don't know how to tell you this, but the standing committee, which is this group of people that carry out official business in a diocese, mm-hmm. and they also have to approve your calling. Mm-hmm. He said, I don't know how to tell you this. They only meet once a year, and they're in the conference room next door here meeting, and they changed the date from 2 weeks ago to today to meet. Could you just go on over there now and tell them what you've told me?
Oh, well.
And I went over there, and I told them, and they told me, you need to get your bags ready for seminary and get a snow shovel because you're moving to Wisconsin. And in that, I'm telling you, just as plain as anything, that God told me, I am in control of your life, and I'm ultimately working out something that will reflect my kingdom and bless you and bless God's people.
Because you didn't have any chance to prepare.
No, I had no preparation. And maybe I wanted to go to a different school. Maybe I wanted to go somewhere else. I mean, I had all sorts of plans. Mm-hmm. I think I've told you that I said when we graduated from seminary, we looked up at God, both of us, and said we would go anywhere but Florida, Lord. Mm-hmm. And 13 years on, where have I been? Florida. And we see that all the time in our life. And Lewis has that great quote, doesn't he? C.S. Lewis, about unanswered prayer. That's part of the package of being a Christian. And surrendering control. He says, I think now, looking back on my life, where I would be if God had granted all my silly requests. And so we have to do that with ourselves, don't we? We have to look back and go, ooh, what a pickle I would be in if I'd really gotten what I thought I wanted.
Yeah. If you have a question for Father Charleston, email it to us at staff@redeemersarasota.com, and we might ask it on the next episode. Thanks so much for joining us for Water into Wine with Father Charleston Wilson. We're looking forward to sharing more grace, more music, and more wine with you again soon. If you liked what you heard, follow the show on your favorite podcast platform. And if there's someone in your life, maybe a friend or a colleague or a family member, who might like to hear this episode, please share it with them. Water into Wine is produced by Church of the Redeemer in Sarasota, Florida. Join us for our services in person or via our live stream. And learn more at redeemersarasota.org/podcast. That's redeemersarasota.org/podcast.